So I mentioned that Peter is my favorite disciple. And I think this is probably my favorite story of his, in part because, in my own way, I lived a version of the story when I was in my late teens. And I wanted to share that story with you this morning as kind of a case study. And since this part of the sermon has to do with my calling to youth ministry, I thought it was fitting to record it here in the youth room. Now, when I was in high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do after I graduated. And if you were to ask me what my plans were, I likely would have given you a different answer every time. It was a very challenging time in my life. I had this enormous decision to make, and I was feeling a lot of pressure. I was also filled with uncertainty, stress, and doubt. What if I can't figure it out? What if I can't find anything? What if God doesn't have a plan for my life? For me, it was kind of like being with the disciples in their boat as the wind and the waves were battering them. Now, graduation came and went, and I still wasn't sure what I was supposed to do. So, after a lot of thought and prayer, and for lack of any better options, I got a retail job so I could start making money. I went back to school to do some upgrading, and I started volunteering at my church's youth group. Now, during that year, I also started to investigate some of the career choices I had entertained in high school. And for various reasons, none of them really worked out. And quickly, my year off turned to two, and then three. Then late one night, I was talking with my mom, once again lamenting about how I didn't know what I was supposed to do and sharing my fear and frustration. And she told me something that I'll never forget. She said, "You know, you seem to be at your happiest when you're working with the youth, and you seem to be good at it. Have you ever thought about becoming a youth pastor?" And at that moment, I kid you not, it was like a light bulb went on. It was literally my aha moment, and I started to feel excited. It was like I was seeing Jesus out on the waves, and there was hope for the first time in a very long while. However, like the disciples, I had some fear and doubt. Was this really Jesus? Or was this going to be just yet another failed option in a long list of potential careers? So, over the coming weeks, I started to look into what being a youth pastor involved and what kind of training and education I'd need. More and more, I felt like this is what I was supposed to do. So, I took a big step of faith and committed to pursuing this calling. Like Peter, I stepped out of the boat and I was on the water. It was exciting, it was exhilarating, but also like Peter, there was some trouble ahead. I ended up applying at Rocky Mountain College in Calgary, as it seemed to be a good fit. I thought I was doing the right thing, but then I got a letter from the government. And you know nothing good ever comes from a letter from the government. In this case, it was about my student loans. And right there in black and white, they told me that I was not going to get the money I needed for school. In fact, they were only going to give me about half the amount that I needed. I didn't know what I was going to do or how I was going to be able to afford this. I spent weeks praying and trying to figure out where I'd get the money. And I couldn't. And I had to withdraw my application. It was incredibly discouraging. Here I thought God was leading me to be in youth ministry, and now that dream was fading. Then came the doubts. Maybe I wasn't meant to be a youth pastor. Maybe I misunderstood what God was trying to say to me. Maybe I was never going to find a meaningful career and I'd be stuck in retail for the rest of my life. Like Peter, I was focusing on the wind and the waves of my life, and I started to sink in the water. Now, fall was fast approaching, and I was at a complete loss of what to do. Then, one fateful Friday night, I showed up early to youth group, and while hanging out, I happened to notice this Christian newspaper sitting there. It was their fall Bible school edition. So I started looking through it, and I landed on a page for Briarcrest Bible College, which happened to offer a full degree through distance learning for almost half the cost as in person. So not only would this allow me to pursue my calling, but I could live at home for free, I could keep working the job that I had, and I could keep serving at the youth group I was at. It all sounded really good. So I decided to apply. Again, I found myself excited, but that excitement started to wane when I saw the application package. There was a lot to it. I needed more references than I had. I needed to get the church board to sponsor me. Oh, and I only had 2 weeks to get it all done. I started to feel like I was sinking again. But once again, God spoke to me through my mom, and she told me, if this is what you were meant to do, God will make it happen. So I stepped out in faith again. And over those couple of weeks, everything, and I mean everything, fell into place. It was honestly amazing to watch it happen. And that September, I started classes. It was like Jesus had pulled me out of the water and was saying, where was your faith? I had it all figured out. You just had to trust me. Now, over the years, this passage and the story of my calling has been an anchor for me as I face new situations and challenges. In particular, the phrase, eyes on me, has taken special meaning and has stayed with me as a reminder when I'm stressed or worried or faltering, for me to keep my eyes on Jesus, who I know is with me in my storms and is asking me to focus on him and to trust him.